What up, yachties? You're at sea with Ari. We're going to split this episode into two parts. In the first part, we're going to talk about the different job roles available to you if you want to work on a super yacht. This part of the video is great for learning the benefits and the drawbacks to the different departments so you can make the right choice when choosing a discipline. I also have a bonus tip for you. I want to get real with you. I want to cut through the crap and talk to you about getting the job you actually want, not the one that's just going to keep you doing what you've always been doing. Stick around for part 2 and I'll share some insider industry tips on which roles have the best benefits versus their drawbacks over the length of a career in its entirety. Some careers get more rewarding the further you pursue them. All of this information may help you understand why I decided I never wanted to be a super yacht captain. Right, so super quickly, there are 3 different departments on super yachts. And you'll probably hear me say this quite a bit, but each of these 3 are equally as important as each other in helping to make a super yacht a super yacht. First of all, you have the interior team. Next, we have the navigation or deck team. And last but not least, of course, we have the engineering team. Needless to say, when a super yacht doesn't have an engineer, the boat isn't going to function for very long at all, if float. And if you don't have a navigation team, who's going to sail it? And if we don't have an interior department, who is going to offer that elevated service experience that really is what makes a super yacht a super yacht? Guys, if you're enjoying this content and want to see more of it in the future, be sure to like, subscribe, and enable the notifications. Now let's outline the hierarchy on different yachts and the multitude of roles that are available. Here are 3 super yachts. One is a classically sized super yacht of around 35 meters or so. The next is what we would call a mega yacht, somewhere in the 55 to 60 meter range. And finally, we have a giga yacht, and this particular giga yacht is over 100 meters, I believe 107 meters, this one. The first thing we notice is that the larger yachts have more crew, of course. That really goes without saying. As yachts get larger, they also have more specialist roles, and the opposite is true on smaller super yachts. For example, chefs help on deck on small super yachts, but on larger yachts, this almost never happens. So as you can see from the top, everything starts with the captain. The captain followed a long route to the pinnacle. Even on smaller 30-meter super yachts, it's likely the captain has at least a decade at sea. He will almost certainly have a strong engineering background as well, but at some point early in his career, they would have decided to pursue the lengthy process of building experience in sea time and getting the certification to be a captain. It's no easy task. The captain is the boss. I've heard a captaincy be referred to as a benevolent dictatorship, meaning there is no democratic voting process for decision making. Their word is final. Now, in saying that, many captains are open to explaining their process when it comes to decision making. But you're best doing that over a pint in the pub, not in the middle of an anchoring operation. We'll talk about that more in later episodes. Below the captain working in the bridge team will be the officers. The amount of officers changes with the size of the ship. The most common structure is having a chief officer and a second officer. Their focus is on navigation and safety. On a mega yacht and larger, you would additionally have a specialist bosun who is responsible for the guest activities and also the day-to-day operations of the deck team, which is then made up of several deckhands who themselves are organized in a hierarchy depending on their competencies, experience, and of course the amount of time on board that particular ship. On super yachts smaller than a mega yacht, you may have the bosun also being what would be considered a petty officer of sorts, in that they will assist the bridge and take on some of the second officer's duties, and those duties are assimilated between the bosun and the chief officer. Entry-level super yachts will only have a mate, who must be a true jack of all trades, and will be responsible for almost everything, including occasionally the engineering responsibilities. The interior team is generally led by the chief steward or chief stewardess, and the hierarchy you would think would be a bit more straightforward, but it is not. Interior is the department that changes the most, depending on the style of the yacht and the demands of the owner. In general terms, the larger the yacht, the more stewards there are. On very large yachts, there are pursers and often an interior manager, as the complexity of the ship's itinerary demands it, allowing the chief steward to focus more on their role, which is primarily catering to the needs of the guests. The chief steward will have a second steward and often a third steward, and on larger yachts, interior crew generally will specialize as either housekeeping or service. Housekeeping maintains the hotel aspect of the yacht, keeping guest cabins orderly, maintaining the common areas, often known as messes, and the general interior cleanliness of the yacht. More and more, the upkeep of floristry and even the care of fine art is the responsibility of housekeeping. Service staff focus on the guest servicing, offering high-end and tailored personal services. The lion's share of the work is around mealtimes, being breakfast, lunch, and dinner for the guests, but also involves service throughout the day and night, making cocktails, doing barista work, making coffee, and sometimes, more and more often these days, there is a demand for specialist services such as those available from cigar sommelier and wine sommelier training. Large yachts have heads of housekeeping and service who are in charge of streamlining operations within that particular sub-department. Working alongside the steward team is the galley team. The number of chefs on board ranges from there being a single chef known as a sole chef who works obviously on their own, up to an entire team on huge yachts, the most I've ever heard of being 7. A huge galley team. The most common setup is the head chef with their under chef known as a sous chef. Head chefs these days often have Michelin star experience, with some of them having starred in many restaurants. I am of the opinion that super yachts for this reason have some of the most dynamic and rounded chefs in the entire world. The demand to produce world-class fare in every discipline is rarely seen in any other job. The chefs have perhaps the most difficult role on board a yacht. Keep in mind, while also feeding the guests and offering the highest caliber of food to them, there is a high expectation to offer food to the crew that is also of an exceptionally high quality. It doesn't leave much room for sleep. Guys, if you're enjoying this content, please like the video, subscribe, hit the notifications bell. As well, in the comments, let me know what you think. Do you agree with me that chefs have it the hardest? The third part of the puzzle is, of course, engineering. The modern yacht is so full of mechanical, electrical, and indeed digital and computer parts that an engineer is basically working around the clock just to keep the lights on. At the top, you have the chief engineer, who in many ways is equal in responsibility to the captain. The final word is always the captain's. However, a good captain will always defer to the judgment of the chief engineer in matters involving the chief engineer's department, and they would rarely contradict them. The chief engineer would then have a second and a third engineer, even a fourth engineer on massive yachts. More and more commonly, we're seeing electrotechnical officers, known as ETOs, who specialize in electrical and AVIT. On very large yachts, there would be a chief ETO with a second ETO and occasionally a third ETO as well. Just as you do in the military or merchant navy, on very large yachts, you also have motormen and oilers. But in the more traditional sized super yachts, you would have most probably a chief engineer and a second, with potentially a third engineer who doubles as an ETO. The layperson constantly underestimates the importance of the engineering department. The job is never ending, and engineers work around the clock to keep a yacht operating as a yacht. And indeed, keeping the yacht floating. In the next part, we're going to weigh up the strengths and benefits in each of the departments, as well as consider how much time and money you're going to have to invest to make it happen, and whether that's a factor for you to consider. We're going to look at the potential drawbacks as well of each role. So we're going to break it down into the short term being the first 2 years of your career, then the medium term from the 2 to the 5 year range, and finally the more long term range, which is 5 to 10 years and even beyond. But finally, for the section 1, I want to talk about a quick bonus tip. And for some of you, this may seem obvious, but for others, this is exactly what you need to hear. We all innately have things we enjoy doing, and the things we're naturally good at. Some people are lucky enough that these are the same thing. Others of us, not so much. If you have to choose between the two, then choose what you enjoy and pursue that discipline on super yachts. Many people come to the super yachting industry to try something new, but end up doing the very same thing they were doing before they tried a career at sea. Let's take the classic example of girls toying with an idea of pursuing a deck career. If you love being outdoors in the sun, working with your hands, but you're under the impression that women can't excel in a deck role, you're just doing yourself a disservice by not at least trying it. It doesn't matter if you spent years honing your skills in restaurants and hotels and you don't have much maritime experience, you can learn as you go. This feeling of not wanting to head away from your training is something all of us experience. It's actually called the sunk cost fallacy. A sunk cost fallacy is the phenomenon whereby a person is reluctant to abandon a strategy or course of action because they've invested heavily in it, even if it is clear that abandonment would be more beneficial. To put it simply, we just find it hard to give up on something we've spent a load of time doing. But if your heart is not in it, your heart is not in it. And you're much more likely to stick to super yachting for the years it takes to progress your career if you enjoy the day-to-day. This goes for anyone wishing to pursue a non-traditional role in super yachting. There really is no reason you shouldn't be, in this day and age, having a go. And there's many examples of individuals breaking the mold and excelling by doing what they love, even if the path for them to success is not as well trodden. On the contrary, if you really detest something, then stay away from it. The classic example for me is the experienced chef who's already burnt out from years of long hours in restaurants. Guess what? It doesn't get any better on yachts. If anything, the hours are even longer. If you love the idea of earning big bucks, but you can't face the idea of working the longest hours, then being a chef is not for you, regardless of how good your knife skills are and where you came from. If you're entering yachting for the lifestyle, then go for the jobs, then embrace that. Follow your strengths, but ultimately pursue what you enjoy doing. I come from a long background of hospitality, having run private dining rooms, literally looking after billionaire clients. I'm a qualified sommelier. My service pedigree is one of the strongest possible. However, I couldn't face the idea of working inside all the time, so I pursued a role on deck and I excelled because I loved it. And contrary to popular belief, all those skill sets from a role I was previously great at has had massive carryover to my new career on deck. And in fact, it's the same for my newest career as a yacht broker. All right, yachties, that concludes part 1. Click on part 2 here to check out how each of the departments stack up against each other, as well as finding out why I would never want to be a captain on a super yacht.